Today in Awesome Stories, we are going to talk about a Japanese horror film called Lesson of the Evil. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. We start with a man and a woman talking about their son. He talks about how he noticed that the boy is snucking out of the house and doing horrible things at night. She pleads with him to not punish her child because he's only 14, but the man insists on sending him to prison. While they are talking, the boy approaches the bedroom with a knife. She notices the door being opened, making her stand up frightened. In a school meeting, teachers discuss how to stop the growing cases of cheating that are happening with the students. Seiji Hasumi is an English teacher that is respected by his peers and loved by his students. He suspects that the students are using cell phones to cheat the tests and wants to use a jammer to kill the cell phone signal in the school. Because the practice is illegal, the other teachers discard the idea, and Hasumi says that they can try another method. Leaving the room, Hasumi is greeted by 3 female students, Misaki, Ayan, and Mayu. Hasumi and the principal listen to one of the students' parents, Rina's father, complaining that she has been bullied at school. Hasumi tells him that there's no evidence of bullying at the class, but the man gets mad and accuses them of calling his daughter a liar. During a PE class, the teacher Shibahara tells a female student, Mia, to go into the locker room with him and locks the door. Unknowingly, the scene is seen by the other girls. At the same time, the art teacher Kyum meets one of the male students at the rooftop of the school. The next day, 3 female students approach Hasumi and tells their suspicion about Mia being sexually harassed by a teacher. Mia tells him that Shibahara found out that she was shoplifting and recorded her admission, blackmailing her into giving him sexual favors or risking being charged. Hasumi decides to help her and takes her to the store to apologize to the owner. She also sends a text to Shibahara telling if he tries to blackmail her again, she will press charges against him. In the classroom, Hasumi decides to take the cell phones away from the students before handing out the tests to avoid cheating. A male student, Keisuke, decides to cheat anyway with his hidden cell phone, but to his surprise, his cell phone doesn't have any signal, making it impossible for him to send any messages to the other students. After the tests, he gets beat up by another student for not being able to cheat. He tells his friends that he suspects that the phones were being jammed by the radio club leader, Mr. Tsurei. Mr. Tsurei hears the conversation and tells them that someone else was jamming the phones. He suspects that something weird is going on with Hasumi because of the suicides that happened while he was teaching at one previous school. Rina's father shows up at school again to complain about the bullying going on at one of the online forums created by the students. Hasumi says that the students are just letting off steam and there's nothing serious going on. During a run, Hasumi sees that Rina's house has a lot of water bottles outside the fence to scare off the cats. Before class, Mia asks Hasumi to meet him on the rooftop, and when they meet, Mia hugs him and then proceeds to kiss him. At night, Rina's father chain smokes outside the house waiting for her and angrily enters the house after his last cigarette. One of the cigarettes gets close to one of the bottles and lights the whole house on fire. In the morning, a detective explains to the school administration that the bottles were full of kerosene and that Rina's parents were killed in the fire. After a shooting practice, Kyum brings the male student to his luxury apartment to have sex with him. Hasumi discovers the relationship and blackmails Kyum into lending him his car and his house. Hasumi brings Mia to Kyum's house and asks her to take a shower with him. When he takes his shirt off, she notices a scar on his back, but he tells her it's nothing. In the classroom, Tadanuma fights a student for accusing him of burning out Rina's house since he was always targeting her on the online chat rooms. Mia remembers that Hasumi asked her for access to the chat room and starts to grow suspicious of him. Hasumi breaks up the fight and asks Tadanuma to have a drink with him. At night, Hasumi drives through the woods with Tatsuma's body on the back. When he was 14, Hasumi killed both his parents and stabbed himself on the back, making the incident look like a robbery that had gone wrong. At school, Tsurei tells Keisuke what he found out about Hasumi, including his strange past and the suicides on his previous job. Hasumi discovers the talk they had through a bug planted in the classroom and decides to do something about it. When Tsurei is going home by train, Hasumi comes up to him, knocks him out, and stages his murder as a hanging. At school, the principal gives a speech to students about Tsurei. Keisuke stares at Hasumi and decides to go to the classroom and look for the bug. Suddenly, Hasumi shows up at the door and congratulates him on the finding. While Hasumi approaches him, Keisuke takes out a knife and prepares to defend himself. Hasumi knocks Keisuke out and ties him up until the end of school. To know if Keisuke and his friends were cheating, Hasumi decides to torture him. After making sure that he told nobody Tsurei's suspicions, Hasumi kills Keisuke and hides his body. Arriving at Kyume's house, Mia asks him Hasumi never answer his phone when she calls, but he doesn't answer. While he's in the shower, she goes through his bag and sees that he has Tetsuma's phone. After sleeping with him, she asks him why he has it, and Hasumi tells her that he forgot it after the drinking. Noticing that she's suspicious of him, Hasumi decides to leave a suicide note from Mia on a student forum. Hasumi homeroom students decide to stay overnight at school to prepare an elaborate haunted house for the school cultural festival. Seeing Rina return to school, the student goes to talk to her, as well as Hasumi. After bumping into Shibahara, two female students realize that he would be at school all night, and one of them decides to check on Mia to make sure he won't harass her. Mia goes to the roof to see Hasumi, and after he tells her to lock the door, he knocks her out. After taking her panties off to frame Shibahara and leaving a note to fake a suicide, Hasumi tosses Mia from the rooftop. When he opens the door, he sees a female student looking for Mia and decides to kill her too. Seeing that he can't mask the murder of the second student, he comes up with another plan. He calls Kyume and tells him to come to the school and help one of the students. Hasumi also jams the cell phone signal to cut the outside communication with the students. Kyume arrives at school and immediately goes to talk with Hasumi, who knocks him out and steals his shoes. Hasumi decides to start a school massacre of his students, for which he will frame Kyume, who frequents a shooting range, by wearing his shoes throughout the killings. After killing Shibahara, Hasumi tells the students that there's a shooter in the school and should head to the rooftop, lock the door, and wait for help. A group of students decides to follow his orders while another stays behind. Kakeru, a skilled archer, grabs his gear and decides to get out of the school and look for help. Some students get to the rooftop door, but Hasumi locked it. A few male students from the other group decide to look for a landline to call the police, while the others barricade the entries of the art room. When they get to the landlines, there's no signal and they can't call for help. They try to run out of the school, but Hasumi shoots and kills all of them. Kakeru is able to get out of the school and starts to run looking for help. Hasumi gets to the rooftop door and sees the group of students that run to him. To the students' horror, he starts shooting them and killing all of them. Kakeru finds a man reading a book at a bus stop and tells him to call the police, warning them of the school shooter. After realizing that his crush, Satomi, is still at school, he decides to run back and rescue her. Satomi wants to know if Kakeru is alive and decides to climb down through the window with a rope, despite her friend's objection. When she's climbing down, her hands get hurt and she falls and breaks her ankles. Kakeru sees Satomi and goes to help her, but Hasumi sees them from one of the windows. Kakeru readies an arrow and fires at Hasumi, but Hasumi fires as well, deflecting the arrow off course, killing Kakeru and then Satomi. Out of time, Hasumi decides to start a fire before the police get to the school. The students in the art room think they are safe when they notice that someone is climbing the rope that Satomi used. Hasumi enters the room and proceeds to shoot the group of students. With just 2 students left to kill, he hears them trying to escape using the emergency escape chute. As they are climbing down, he shoots the 2 students and makes sure they are dead. The 2 students, however, tricked Hasumi, dressing up 2 of their dead peers with their clothes, tossing them down an emergency escape chute and hiding inside the school. As the police arrives at the school, Hasumi shoots Kyume, making look like a suicide, and handcuffs himself. To Hasumi's surprise, the police announce 2 survivors and bring them into the room. The students stare scared at Hasumi while he pretends he's relieved to see them. Angered, the male student accuses him of realizing the massacre, but he's held back by police officers. One of the 2 surviving students points out to the police that the school's training defibrillator records audio. The audio contains evidence of one of the murdered students speaking his murderer's name prior to being killed by Hasumi. As he's leaving the school in handcuffs, the female student asks him if Keisuke is still alive. He tells her that he was only executing the will of God and exorcising the demons from her class. The male student says that he's crazy, but she says he's only pretending and preparing to play his next game. After being thrown out of the roof, Mia wakes up and calls for Hasumi. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.